This government does not torture people. You know, we stick to U.S. law and our international obligations.
In the immediate aftermath of 9/11, we did some things that were wrong. We tortured some folks.
On Capitol Hill, President Trump's nominee to head the CIA, Gina Haspel, announced she would not restart the CIA's interrogation program. But she repeatedly refused to call the CIA's post-9/11 treatment of prisoners torture and declined to state whether she believes torture is immoral. Haspel's comments came in testimony to the Senate Intelligence Committee as she made her case to become the first woman to head the agency. Haspel is a 33-year CIA veteran who was responsible for running a secret CIA black site in Thailand in 2002, where one prisoner was waterboarded and tortured in other ways. Haspel also oversaw the destruction of videotapes showing torture at the black site.
So one question I've not heard you answer is, do you believe that the previous interrogation techniques were immoral?
Senator, I believe that CIA officers to whom you referred...
It's a yes or no answer. Do you believe the previous interrogation techniques were immoral? I'm not asking do you believe they were legal. I'm asking do you believe they were immoral?
Senator, I believe that CIA did extraordinary work to prevent another attack on this country given the legal tools that we were authorized to use.
Please answer yes or no. Do you believe in hindsight that those techniques were immoral?
Senator, what I believe sitting here today is that I support the higher moral standard we have decided to hold ourselves to.
Can you please answer the question?
Senator, I think I've answered the question.
No, you've not. Do you believe the previous techniques, now armed with hindsight, do you believe they were immoral? Yes or no?
Senator, I believe that we should hold ourselves to the moral standard outlined in the Army Field Manual.
Okay, so I understand that you've not answered the question, but I'm going to move on.
Let me remind you of what exactly was done. Gina Haspel not only knows about this, she partook in it. She did torture, literally. They say here in the Senate torture report, this is from the Daily Beast, interrogations lasted for days on end. Detainees forced to stand on broken legs or go 180 hours in a row without sleep. A prison so cold, one suspect essentially froze to death. The Senate Intelligence Committee is finally releasing its review of the CIA's detention and interrogation programs, and it is brutal. Forced rectal feeding, and worse. At least 5 detainees were subject to rectal feeding or rectal hydration without any documented medical need. You don't say. While IV infusion is safe and effective, one officer wrote, rectal hydration could be used as a form of behavior control. Others were deprived of sleep, which could involve staying awake for as long as 180 hours, sometimes standing, sometimes with their hands shackled above their heads. Some detainees were forced to walk around naked or shackled with their hands above their heads. In other instances, naked detainees were hooded and dragged up and down corridors while subject to physical abuse. That's assault. At one facility, detainees were kept in total darkness and shackled in cells with loud noise or music and only a bucket to use for waste. We got our techniques that we used from a communist Chinese manifesto on how to torture. And somehow the media and the Democrats were walking on eggshells like, maybe it's enhanced interrogation. It's from a manual on how to torture, you fucking spineless bitches.
What has resulted in not holding those torturers accountable is that one of them is now ascending to the highest post in the CIA. And, you know, Amy, the CIA is generally prohibited from engaging in operations inside of the United States and also prohibited from engaging in propaganda aimed at the American people. And yet, to me, this whole Gina Haspel nomination really seems like a CIA operation itself. You know, the CIA throughout history, from its origins, and this was the case with its predecessor, the OSS, has had a mastery of coups and interventions and interfering in affairs of other nations and waging propaganda battles. Gina Haspel, when she was nominated for the CIA, was the recipient of an enormous amount of support from the CIA's social media accounts, Twitter and others. And it was a propaganda campaign that was aimed at all of us, at the American people. It was aimed at lawmakers. It was aimed at journalists, where they sort of tweeted and they did it over and over and over. And they even did it once Haspel was technically in charge of the CIA, where they're giving her biography, making her sound like some combination of like Lara Croft Tomb Raider with Jack Bauer. I mean, it was really kind of incredible. And then they selectively, the CIA, declassified documents, including one from a Hillary Clinton supporter, Mike Morrell, the former acting director of the CIA, that sought to exonerate Gina Haspel of any wrongdoing in the destruction of the CIA tapes, pinning all of the blame on her boss, Jose Rodriguez. The reason I'm bringing all of this up is because Gina Haspel has been embraced by Republican and Democratic nominees. Everyone from John Brennan, who was sort of Obama's killer priest. You know, they always said, oh, John Brennan, it's like he's like priest-like. He has this great conscience. This man ran a global assassination program. Michael Hayden, Bush's former CIA director, I actually respect his intellectual honesty because unlike Brennan and Clapper and others, Hayden says, I support torture, and torture works, and that's part of why I support Gina Haspel. What we saw yesterday was a CIA propaganda operation. Gina Haspel's answers were very carefully prepared, the way she refused to answer Kamala Harris's questions about the immorality of torture. And, you know, one of the things I found was astounding was she said the CIA has historically not been in the business of interrogations. What on earth is she talking about, and why wasn't she pressed on that? I believe that what she was doing was relying on a technicality, which is that the CIA traditionally outsources those interrogations, or they will have people like the mental health professionals, Mitchell and Jessen, who were essentially the ones that came in and said, here's how we can reverse engineer the tactics that we use to train our own personnel to resist torture or to face torture. Let's reverse engineer that and actually apply it in an offensive manner against prisoners. So the fact that this hearing was a farce, where unfortunately some of the Democrats and all of the Republicans engaged in a collective endorsement of what is, in my view, quite clearly a CIA propaganda operation. It's a coup of sorts to have someone like Gina Haspel, who has been involved with destroying evidence, torture, kidnapping, and refuses to denounce any of it.